And we are running. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us here today. I appreciate you hosting us today for Carla and yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about your background?
Sure. My name is Jim Remar. I am president and CEO of the Cosmosphere. I've got a double major in history and political science from Washburn University. I have a master's in museum administration with a minor in history from the University of Nebraska, and a mini MBA from Wichita State University. I've spent most of my career in the museum industry, with the exception of 4 years where I was vice president of operations for Gregory Incorporated. But other than that, I've been a museum guy all my life.
All right. So what brought you here?
Well, I grew up here in Hutchinson. Hutchinson is a community that is near and dear to me. Moved away in 1990 to go to school. And then I had my first job running a small historic site in central Pennsylvania. It was a manufacturer of horse-drawn vehicles, of all things. So I joke that I skipped a few modes of transportation and went straight from horse-drawn buggies to rockets. But in 2000, I had the opportunity to come back to the Cosmosphere, come back to Hutchinson. I started at the Cosmosphere as curator. In 2008, I left. At that time, I was senior vice president of operations. Went to Gregory, and then came back in 2012 as president and chief operating officer. And then a year and a half ago, was promoted to CEO.
All right. As I mentioned when we first met, it's like, isn't it great to come to work and have a Lunar Module sitting here waiting for you?
It is. Lunar Module sitting on display, walk underneath the SR-71. So it's inspiring to walk through the front doors every day, to know what we accomplished and hopefully where we're going next.
All right. Now, were you here when they were first building the Cosmosphere?
I was not. I came in right after the most recent expansion, of the largest expansion. That was in '97, and I came on in 2000, so about 3 years after that major expansion. But came right at the tail end of the restoration of Liberty Bell 7. So I was able to see the media and PR that promoted or generated for the Cosmosphere. So I've seen some exciting things happen.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the things that the Cosmosphere is best known for, not only being one of the world's premier air and space museums, but the restoration work that you guys do here. Can you talk some about that aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Cosmosphere is known around the world for its museum, its collection. We have the largest collection of U.S. artifacts outside of the Smithsonian, and the largest collection of Soviet artifacts outside of Moscow. But what a lot of people also recognize us for are our restoration, conservation, and fabrication capabilities. We have long been the industry experts in the preservation of and restoration of space artifacts. So from the Mercury spacecraft to Gemini spacecraft, Apollo spacecraft, we've done major restorations, not only Liberty Bell 7, but Gemini 6, Gemini 10, Gemini 12, Apollo 13. We've done the F1 engines for Jeff Bezos and Bezos Expeditions. And our current project, we're presently restoring the original mission consoles from Mission Control, the historic Mission Control down at NASA Johnson Space Center.
Now, is that being done in time for the Apollo 11 anniversary?
It is. So we started this project about 2 years ago. We are part of a larger team, as we hear the kids in the background.
Yes. They're having fun.
They are, which is great.
Yes.
We're part of a larger team that has an objective of restoring the historic Mission Operations Control Room and bringing it back to life, bringing it back to as it was when it was utilized during the Apollo era. For years, the control room had been neglected, and many consider that room to be the cathedral to early manned space exploration. And so what we are doing, our team is taking the 19 consoles in that room, including the flight director's console, and preserving them, so removing the corrosion, putting a corrosion inhibitor on them, and then reanimating them, bringing them back to life. So when the visitor goes into the viewing room, they'll be able to to see the consoles light up. They'll see the data and the telemetry on the screens, and it's part of the bigger picture to where the carpet, the wall coverings, the ceiling, the lighting is all being restored. And it will essentially be as if the controllers walked out of the room to go to lunch or go to dinner with the intent of coming back. But when the visitor sees it, that room will tell a story, that room will come to life. And it will be as it was when they called the Eagle down to the lunar surface.
Nice. Now, did you have anything to do with the restoration of the launch control center consoles that are used down at Kennedy Space Center?
We did not. So our
Okay.
team was not involved in the launch control, nor the replication of the launch control. But fortunately, we have the mission control.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's really nice the way they have it down at the Apollo 5.
It is.
Apollo Saturn V
Yeah.
Center, yes.
To
Yeah.
recreate that whole experience.
Exactly,
Which is
yeah.
pretty neat.
Oh yes, the pre-show is great. Yes.
Absolutely.
Then you get to walk out and it's like, oh look, a Saturn V.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yes, yeah. So you're going to get a Saturn V here in some
I
form?
wish. Unfortunately, there are no full Saturn V configurations left. Fortunately, we do have an F1 engine on display outside, as well as the original F1 pieces on display from the Bezos expedition.
Right. Now, when are those going to be leaving? They're going somewhere else?
They are. So the pieces that were positively identified from Apollo 11 are the property of the National Air and Space Museum. Presently, Air and Space is undergoing a major renovation, and so we anticipate probably for the next 2 years we'll have those on display until Air and Space is ready to take possession.
Okay. That is just such an amazing thing to bring that up.
It is.
How far down did those come up
About
from?
3 miles.
3 miles, wow. So that's deeper than the Titanic.
Deeper than the Titanic,
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. To find those and to be able to actually identify them as a specific engine
Right.
from a specific flight.
So they had an idea of where the debris fields were.
Right.
In 2011, they set an expedition out to try and locate the debris fields using side-scan sonar. They were successful in doing so, and then in 2012, the expedition to recover the engines went out. And the first time they actually put eyeballs on the target was when they dropped the ROVs. So the remotely operated vehicles dropped. They had 2 of them. And then they saw the engines, and then unfortunately could not identify what missions they were from on the bottom of the ocean. So they began to pick the most recognizable pieces and then brought them up. And then it was our conservation team that was able to identify the engines from their respective missions, including Apollo 11.
Okay. Yeah, that's, as I say, just it's phenomenal the work you guys do here with that.
Well, appreciate that.
Apologize. Anyway, now can you tell me, right behind you, you have a lunar module.
We do.
Can you tell me about this specific artifact?
Yeah, absolutely. So sitting behind us is a lunar module. Although it is a replica, it was actually manufactured by Grumman. Grumman was the company that produced the lunar module for the Apollo program. And Grumman built this piece specifically for NBC to use as a prop during the lunar landings.
So it's been well used.
It has. So not only did NBC use it, not only is it on display here at the Cosmosphere, but it was also one of the main prop pieces in the Tom Hanks produced movie for IMAX, Magnificent Desolation.
Yes. Okay. Out of all the exhibits here, well, first of all, let me say, how many artifacts do you have?
We have about 10,000 artifacts in our collection, of which only about 7 or 8% are on display here at the Cosmosphere. We have another probably 3 or 4% on display at other museums, as well as 2 international traveling exhibits that we support. But we have a very nice collection of artifacts.
Okay. And about, out of all those artifacts, thank you, out of all those artifacts, what is your favorite artifact?
That's a great question. My favorite artifact has to be the White Room. There were 3 White Rooms, 3 umbilical towers, and just knowing what that White Room was, what it was used for, the emotions that had to have been occurring inside that White Room To me, it's inspiring, and it's incredible to step in there and just to think about what was going through everyone's minds as they prepared to launch the mighty Saturn V.
Yeah, the people that went through there, where they went to after they stepped through there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, you talked about only having a small percentage here on display.
Right.
Where is everything else kept?
So we have 3 storage locations. We have our primary storage facility or curatorial area here in the Cosmosphere. It's probably where 80% of the artifacts and archives are stored. And then we have 2 off-site warehouses. We have a standalone off-site warehouse, and then we have another warehouse that is a part of our SpaceWorks restoration facility.
Okay. And that's here in town?
All are here in town in Hutchinson, yes.
Okay, so it's really cool. You're out in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. And as I say, I mentioned this to her, so
Right.
Please forgive me for saying it that way.
Absolutely, no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're off the beaten path. We're not near any major highways or metropolitan epicenters. We're in a community of 40,000 people.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're here is a testament to our founders and people who had some foresight and a lot of ingenuity and a desire to share something spectacular with the people of Hutchinson as well as the region and nation.
Okay. How many people do you get through here every
We
year?
get about 105,000. That includes our outreach. So it's, again, one of the largest tourist attractions in the state of Kansas. And the fact that we're in a small community speaks volumes that over 100,000 people interact with the Cosmosphere annually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it really affects the economy. Do you have any figures on how much it affects?
So in general, the Cosmosphere has about a $12 to $13 million impact on the local economy. Statewide, we commissioned the University of Kansas School of Business to do a study on what our state economic impact is, and they estimate that to be a $103 million impact on the state.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
It is, absolutely.
It is very impressive. Now, you weren't here at the beginning, but what can you tell me about the beginnings of Cosmosphere?
We started out as a small planetarium. Patty Carey was our founder. For those familiar with Hutchinson, we sit on one of the largest natural deposits of salts in the country. And so Patty's family that she married into were one of the major producers or miners of salt. And so Patty had a lifelong love of the stars, and she wanted to do something to share that with the community. And so she raised the money to purchase a used star projector, a used dome, and set up her planetarium in the Poultry Building on the State Fairgrounds. From there, she grew, came onto the campus of Hutchinson Community College in 1966. In fact, our Dr. Goddard's laboratory is Patty's second generation planetarium. And then in 1980, we opened as the Kansas Cosmosphere and Discovery Center, about a 35,000 square foot facility with, I believe, the 8th Omnimax domed theater presentation in the world. And it was really because Patty wanted to do something for science education in the community. There were centers in major metropolitan areas on the coasts, but nothing servicing this geography of the United States. And so Patty said, why not Hutchinson? And so she was able to work with our first CEO, Max Airy, and acquired a significant number of artifacts from the U.S. program. Over the years, acquired additional artifacts, including artifacts from the Soviets, and then continued to expand and grow into who we are today.
Yeah, you do, as you mentioned, you have the biggest collection of Soviet
have
artifacts.
the largest collection of
Russian?
Soviets outside of Moscow,
Yeah.
which really puts the Cosmosphere in position to tell the definitive story of the space race from both points. Really, the only museum in the world that is able to do that.
Yeah, having the capsules and the suits and things, that's things you don't normally see.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You did mention Max Airy. If
Yes.
I may go there real quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please tell me about, what happened.
Sure. So Max Airy was the first CEO of the Cosmosphere. He was responsible for the collection that we have today, responsible for the facility that we know today, as well as the museum. So did tremendous work developing and growing the Cosmosphere into the world-renowned organization that it is. Unfortunately, decided to sell some artifacts that were not of his belonging for personal gain, and the rest is history.
Oh, yes, yeah. How long ago was that? I forgot.
It was discovered in 2003.
Okay, okay. Is anybody in contact with him anymore? I'm
Our
just curious
museum
what's
has
happened
actually
to him.
done work for the Stafford Museum.
Oh, okay.
The Gemini 6 capsule was on display at the Oklahoma History Center. And Oklahoma History Center and Stafford Museum agreed, along with the Smithsonian owns the spacecraft, to send the spacecraft to Weatherford, to Stafford Museum. So Stafford commissioned the Cosmosphere Spaceworks to oversee the move and installation of that spacecraft there in Weatherford, Oklahoma.
Yeah, and we were just there a few days
Yeah.
ago, so really, that museum blew me away. I did
It's a
not
great
expect
museum.
what I saw there at all.
Right,
Yeah, so
absolutely.
very, very good. And I guess everything that the Cosmosphere touches seems to really help take off there.
It does. We not only have a tremendous museum, but we also have a wide range of education programs. And so those have allowed us to have a tremendous impact across this country. Last year we had 39 states represented in our camp programs. And many of our former campers and counselors have gone on to work for NASA or the aerospace industry or the military. We have one of our former campers who's a mission controller at JPL. We have people working at SpaceX down at Johnson Space Center. So it's inspiring to see these kids and then to follow their track and look to see where they ultimately land as far as professionals.
Yeah, getting the kids excited about space is so instrumental to not only the future, but just exciting the minds
Absolutely.
of the kids. About how many kids do you have going through
So
here
in
each year?
terms of school field trips, we do about 12,000 kids annually, and then our camp programs, we do a little over 1,100 during a 12-week period.
Okay, well, tell me more about your camp program.
So we have a variety of camps starting out for kids in early elementary all the way up through high school. We begin introducing kids about planet Earth, about Mars, about investigating space, and then our flagship programs are 101 through 501. 101, the kids come and it's an in-residence camp where they stay at the dorms at the community college, and then we walk them through various training sessions, and we work them through various components and teach them about teamwork and leadership and cooperation and critical thinking, and they culminate their activities by flying a mission on our motion-based simulator, which is still shuttle-based. And then in level 2, they progress from there. They expand upon what they learned in level 1. And then we also introduce a scuba activity to simulate what the astronauts do in terms of their training at the neutrally buoyant laboratory. And then in 301, we take our kids down to Houston at Johnson Space Center, give them a behind-the-scenes tour, let them interact with actual engineers down at NASA. 401, they go down to Kennedy Space Center and have the same type of experience. And then our 501, we take them out to California, take them to SpaceX, Jet Propulsion. We take them to Edwards Air Force Base and the California Science Center and teach them about what is possible.
Okay.
Can I
So,
interject right there?
sure.
Don't forget our adult astronaut.
oh,
We also have an adult astronaut camp that allows the adults to act like children and get into the simulators and do the activities that the kids would. They typically have a blast, and it's allows them to relive their childhood and live their dreams out.
no pun intended, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. How many adults do you usually have come through the programs?
Not very many.
Not very many. It's grown in the last couple of
Yeah.
years. I think last year was our biggest year to date, and I'd say maybe 20 is what we had.
So we had 20 adults last year.
Okay. Get the word out, you'll get more,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why I had to plug it.
Okay, there you go. So, what you said simulators, so please tell me about the different simulators. you
Sure.
have.
Up in our camp area, we have what we call our Falcon simulator, which is based on the shuttle. It's about 3/4 to scale of the shuttle cockpit. It is motion-based, so it pitches up and down. It has subwoofers underneath and rumbles to replicate launch and reentry. And the kids are literally flying a mission. They launch. They can go up into low Earth orbit. They can dock with the station. They can capture Hubble into a Hubble repair mission. And then we have 5 participants in the simulator. Then we have another 5 participants down in our mission control. And so it's similar to the actual mission control where those kids are talking to and interacting with their counterparts up in the simulator. And then we also have a Soyuz trainer. And this Soyuz was actually used by NASA astronauts in the 90s as they were preparing for shuttle to Mir missions. And we built this specifically for NASA and for JSC training. And once the JSC was able to acquire an actual Soyuz for their use, they allowed the simulator to come back here, and where our kids now get to train into it.
Right.
We also have a 4G centrifuge where the kids can experience what it's like to pull 4Gs, and then a multi-axis trainer, all intended to give the kids, the participants, an idea of the types of training that our astronauts have and will continue to experience.
Great. Well, when we finish here, I definitely would like to take a look at the simulators and stuff as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah, those are great. Now, has there ever been any discussion about associating with Space Camp?
No, so we are independent and separate from Space Camp. We have a good relationship with the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, but they have their own program and we have ours. And while there are some similarities, there are also differences. And so we try and maintain a separation from, but continue to cooperate with them, mostly on the museum side of things.
Okay, very good, very good. Let's see, where do we want to go? Yeah, dear, did you have any questions you wanted to ask as well? You had some questions. I know you're not feeling well, but.
No, I think I asked my most important question already.
Okay.
Talk about acquiring artifacts.
Did not.
Yeah. Yes, that would be a good area.
Sure. So
Sure.
the Cosmosphere has one of the largest collections related to the exploration of space anywhere in the world. And there are many ways we've acquired those artifacts over the years. In the late 70s and early 80s, we saw an influx of 3,000 to 4,000 artifacts almost overnight from NASA. So at the end of Apollo, there were literally thousands of warehouses across the United States full of hardware utilized for early manned spaceflight. Max Airy at the time was working with the Smithsonian, with NASA, to try and figure out a way to systematically place these artifacts for public appreciation. Fortunately, we were a little bit of right place at the right time, and so Smithsonian, by law, has right of first refusal of any excess property from NASA. They decided that they had enough in their collection at the time and allowed NASA to transfer property of those artifacts over to the Cosmosphere. So we acquired those. So over the years, then we continued to grow our collection of U.S. artifacts, mostly through surplus property, excess property there at NASA. We also purchased some from auction, had some donated by former astronauts and engineers. And then we're able to acquire our Soviet collection at a time when the Soviet economy was crumbling and in disarray. The American dollar was king, and we were able to pay some nice prices for some very premium artifacts. We also worked with the Soviet space program as well as cosmonauts to acquire artifacts. So over time, just have built up this renowned collection.
Okay. Now, you've had many astronauts who have come and visited
Yes.
here. Your Hasselblad collection with the signatures is
Yes.
pretty amazing. Tell me about some of the astronauts who have come to visit.
Boy, we've had a who's who of astronauts. Many of the original 7 have been here. High percentage of the Gemini astronauts have been here, and most of the moonwalkers have been here. So Wally Schirra, Scott Carpenter, Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, Dick Gordon, Walt Cunningham, Buzz Aldrin, you name it, they've probably been here.
All right. I could put you on the spot and ask who's your favorite.
I have several favorites. Jim Lovell, just because, I mean, he's Jim
Yeah.
Lovell, and we have the Apollo 13 spacecraft here.
You have a special affinity here.
Special
for that.
affinity
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Jim and for
Yeah.
Fred Hayes. Michael Collins was absolutely tremendous. He was so down to earth and just was enjoyable to be with and to talk to. Dick Gordon and Wally Schirra were probably some of the funnier astronauts, just the jokes and the stories that they were able to tell. Gene Cernan is also one of my favorites. Again, for the things that Captain Cernan was able to accomplish, but also the fact that he was the last person, the last human to step foot on the moon. So those are just off the top of my head some of my favorite visitors.
Yeah, they're some amazing guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we need more of them.
Yes, without a doubt. And that's hopefully what we're doing here, inspiring the next generation of explorers.
Yes. Are you hoping that you'll see one of your students who have come through here
Absolutely.
step
We're
onto the
getting
moon?
close. So as we continue to have students experience Cosmosphere programs, we know that we're impacting these students and igniting that spark. And to see our students go on to what they have, to know that they're at Jet Propulsion, at NASA, in the military, we're getting very close to having one of those students make it into the astronaut corps. And I anticipate that at some point in the not too distant future we'll be successful, and who knows, maybe one of our students will be the next astronaut on the moon, or the next astronaut that ultimately goes to deep space exploration and sets foot on Mars.
That would be pretty great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you feel about the way our space program is going right at the
Right
moment?
now, excited. We hit a period of complacency in this country with the space program. A bit of a disappointment over the last few years, given that we do not, as a country, have our own manned vehicle. We've got to hitch a ride on the Soyuz with the Russians. But the direction our space program is going, Administrator Bridenstine and his commitment to the space program, the fact that Boeing, SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic are all beginning to push the envelope and chart a new path for space exploration is very exciting. Almost every day now you can turn the TV on or open up a web page and see something new and exciting happening to space exploration. So while 1972 was the culmination of early manned space exploration, when CERN last set foot on the surface of the moon, I think some of our brightest and best days are in front of us.
All right, very good. Well, we're about at the half-hour mark. I don't know if you wanted to speak anymore.
No,
or
I'm good, unless you
I
had me. I'm
think, no,
sorry.
I heard history of Cosmosphere,
Yeah.
I heard SpaceWorks, I heard camps.
Great, as long
I
as,
think-
as long as you're happy and you're happy, I'm good.
Yeah, I think we got some
Okay.
wonderful
I know
stuff
you
there.
tell stories, but we'd be here all day.
Oh yes. Well, stories are always great, but yes.
Great. Well, thank you. Very nice meeting you. I hope you feel better. Michelle, nice meeting you.
Thank
I'd shake
you.
your hand,
Yes.
but
No, we'll do the air shake again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to come.